start in a couple more minutes. I think.
Yeah, it's Sunday, 7.
3. Guess I don't need my jacket.
Actually, you should. Oh no, oh god, I only know how to say oh no. I know, right? Oh god. Is everybody here a student in TSM? Awesome. Cool, nice. Cool. What does everybody study? Anybody want to share?
あなたたちが何勉強してるの？はい。Yes.
Your first. Yeah.
そうですね。英語で。シンガーソング
Cool.
track making.
Great. Yeah. Great.
はい。
That's cool.
一言言ってください。長く説明する必要ない。一言言ってください。どうぞどうぞ。何勉強してるんですか？
making music.
Cool.
作
Great.
曲な感じ？
Yeah.
作曲ね。コンポジション。
Nice.
Ah,
That's
okay,
cool.
wonderful.
Yeah.
I study how to play keyboard
Awesome.
and just piano and
Nice.
Great.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm playing the drums.
Great.
Very talented drummer.
Yeah. Nice.
Jazz?
Planning on going to Berklee.
Oh,
Oh, they-
wonderful.
ゆうちゃんも行くんだよね。
3人一緒のコース。
3人？
3人一緒のコース。
ね、なんかね、
コース。
ね
コース。
悲しいね。
悲しい。
She's from, you know, she's from Malaysia.
Oh, that's awesome. Cool.
Yeah. And she's studying saxophone and keyboard.
Great.
Nice. That's awesome.
From Korea.
No, I'm
No. From where?
Shanghai.
Shanghai. Oh, that's right.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I study in local.
Vocal.
Yeah.
民中バーマン、はい、みようば。
Yeah.
じゃあね。あじゃあ日本語。
Vocal?
Nice.
Great.
I'm studying composition.
Composition. Arranging.
Yeah.
I'm playing guitar.
Yeah, good. That's cool. Hi. That's cool.
We know you.
We know you. We saw him on earlier this week.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
じゃあ、始まってもいいんじゃないですか？
Yes. Yeah. So we interviewed. So Damon interviewed. Jed.
Great. I didn't meet you.
So it's being live streamed, so that means that if you not use the microphone, nobody can hear you.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
right now we're not doing it.
Yeah.
始まってもいいんですか？はい、大丈夫です。
Yes. Okay.
Hi.
Cool. There we
Should we
go.
get started?
We are getting started. はい、皆さんどうもこんにちは。今日はバークリーの、特別講義のます。とりあえず、紹介します。ちょっと待ってください。Global Enrollment Initiatives. Bree Tagliaferro. 拍手
Hello. Is this working?
It's
Can you hear
working.
okay? Okay, perfect. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight. We're really happy to be at our global partner, Tokyo School of Music, today. We are in Japan this week to do some clinics with our faculty, Claire Lim, who you'll be seeing tonight, as well as Tiger Okoshi, who is right back here joining us as well, and our Dean of Admissions, Damian Bracken, also right over here.
Okay, you have to give me a second here.
Oh, sure.
Okay. はい、皆さんどうもこんにちは。バークリーから足運んできました。1週間ぐらい日本にいるんですけど、特別講義、のため来ました。今日の特別講義は、クレア・リムさん、のエブルトンライブの、の説明なんですけど、拍手してください。はい。そうしたら、もう一人、デイミアン・ブラッケンさん、はい、お願いします。拍手してください。Is that the same from Global Enrollment Initiatives? Is that the same? Dean of Admissions. じゃあ、入学事務所な、担当者ですね。はい。And 日本人の方ですね。名前何でしたっけ？タイガー講師。そうですね。はい、よろしくお願いします。はい。
Thank you. And we'd also like to welcome from Koyo joining us on the live stream. We're happy to have you here as well. We will take some time at the end of the session to answer any questions about the Berklee track of study for anyone that has questions about that. And I also forgot to introduce myself. Bree.
I did it.
Thank you. So my name is Bree, and I work in the Global Initiatives Office at Berklee. So we hope you enjoy the session today, and please, if you have any questions, we'd be happy to chat at the end of the session.
はい、紅葉の学生たちも、よろしくお願いしますのことで、私はちょっと紹介したんですけど、Global Enrollment Initiatives、留学生の募集の担当ですね。ブリー・タグリア・フェロー。で、今日は最後で、質問するのコーナーあるから、まあ、今日の講義の内容もそうなんですけど、その後は、まあ、例えば留学についてとか、そのことは、後では自由で質問してください。よろしくお願いします。
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. And now we'll turn it over to Claire.
はい、じゃあ、クレアさんの出番、よろしくお願いします。はい。
Hi everyone. Oh, let's see. Check. I think we're
Check.
Check.
しげる、直してあげて。
Check. This sounds
Gain shaping device on there.
Check. Check. Yeah. Check. I don't think it's anything. Check. Yeah. Check. Yeah, in my ear. That's fine. So, oh no. Okay, check. Now it's a little better, I think. Yes. Yeah. I think it's good. Now we should be good. Okay. Yes, we're good. Thank you so much, everyone. Yeah, that's cool.
はい。
Cool. But yes, thank you all very much for coming. My name is Claire Marie Lim, and I teach in Berklee's Electronic Production and Design Department.
はい、皆さん聞いてくれてありがとうございます。私はクレア・リンさん、バークリーの、Can you say the name of the division again?
Yeah, Electronic Production and Design.
Electric production and design.
Yes.
I'm not going to try to say that in Japanese. まあ、でも、EDM の、制作の学科なんですね。はい。
Yeah. One of the things that I do a lot as a professor with my students is teach them performance. So that's a little bit of what I'm going to talk about in today's session.
その制作だけじゃなくて、パフォーマンスの的な、まあ、ポイントになります、今日の講義。
So very quickly, I wanted to ask everyone a question, maybe in the room, but maybe also on the stream. Who here has used music software?
じゃあ質問します。ミュージックソフトウェアというと制作の、ソフトウェアを使ったことある人手を挙げてください。紅葉もそうですよ。
Cool. That's great. Thank you. That's a lot of what I do with my students, but what we usually do a lot is not just production in the studio, but also how to use these on stage.
だから、まあ、さっき言ったように制作だけじゃなくてその舞台の上でどうやってこの、ソフトウェアを使うのが、ポイントになります。はい。
And at Berklee, we have a special name that we made up to encompass all of the live electronic music that we make with instruments called electronic digital instruments. So that is EDI at Berklee.
これ、バークリーの作ったの言葉ね。Electronic Digital Instruments の言葉で、その、まあ、今の、なんていうの、パフォーマンスの使い方は、この分野になります。Electronic Digital Instruments.
This is a little bit about me. Outside of Berklee, I teach, yes, at Berklee, but outside of that, I'm also an artist, and my artist name is Staltrick. And I also work with a lot of other people in music technology, so that's why I call myself a music technologist. What that means is maybe another artist wants to do it, so I teach them how to do it.
まあ、先生もやってるんですけど、自分も、アーティスト。自分の、アーティストの名前がドルトリック。カタカナにするとね。で、パフォーマンスだけじゃなくて、そのミュージックテクノロジスの意味が、例えば他の人の、まあ、このことを勉強したいなれば、そのエレクトロニックミュージカルインストゥルメントの使い方は教えるの仕事しています。
So yes, today, before I do my actual presentation, I wanted to start it off with a performance. So I'm going to do an original song from my artist project, and I hope you enjoy it.
いい曲ぐらいパフォーマンスしたいと思います。楽しいんだったら拍手してください。
Thank you. Cool.
We're going off, me entering, but you pen to ring.
fantasies you have. It's like a rush of ecstasy, but you're killing me while I'm driving you mad. Nobody knows if we're meant to be. Are you the one for me? Nobody knows if we can ever be. It's all a mystery. Nobody knows if we're meant to be. Are you the one for me? Nobody knows if we can ever be. It's all a mystery. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
拍手
Oh, thank you so much. So, whoa, okay. So that's an example of what it means to do a live electronic performance.
まあ、これは Live Electronic Performance ね。
Yes.
もうそのこと。
And because of that, that's what I teach a lot of my students how to do. So a lot of them might be singer-songwriters. They might also be producers, or they might even just be instrumentalists, like maybe they play drums or they play piano, but they're trying to figure out how to make music live with tools like what I'm going to talk about next.
まあ、だから、もうこのことは自分の学生たちに教えてるんですけど、学生はどういう学生たちがいるというと、まあ、シンガーソングライターみたいな人たち、楽器やってる人たちもそうなんですけど、その後もプロデューサーとかその作曲者の、教え子もいる。まあ、なぜかというと、みんなは、まあ、この時代だから、どうやってこのエレクトロニックのデバイスはパフォーマンスで使うのすごい大きな課題。今はみんないろんな人が興味あって。はい。
So, before I talked a little bit more about what it means to have EDI at Berklee, I wanted to talk a little bit about live electronics and the history behind it.
はい。じゃあ、まあ、これからその今まではどういう流れだったのを説明します。はい。
So originally, live electronics, this word or electronic performance, was something that started it started to have a name in the 1960s, and it was really more about classical music at the time.
もうこのライブエレクトロニクスの言葉を始めたは1960年代ね。最初はね、このエレクトロニック音楽はどっち変な話ね、そのクラシックのところから始まったの。
But even before that, live electronic music really started back in the 1800s with the very first music instrument for electronic performance being created around the 1890s. This is the telharmonium.
でもその前はちょっとあったよ。1890年代はそのテルハーモニアムのエレクトロニックの楽器あったの。
Yeah, and yes, kind of. And you can see from here that if you look closely, these are actually two layers of keyboard, almost like electone or organ.
よくこれ1800年代ですよ。でも写真見たら、なんかキーボード2つあったよね。この時代みたいな雰囲気ちょっとあるね。
And that's because back then, early on, when people were making these electronic instruments, it was quite easy to use something that already existed as a starting point. So that's why even nowadays, a lot of controllers are still keyboards as well.
なんていうのでも結論で言うと、始まった時、今もそうなんですけど、もともとあるもので使ってやってるよね。だから、この時代も、その時代のキーボードがなんか使ってるし、なんかね、クレアさんもどっちか言うとそのキーボードっぽい、まあキーボードっぽいじゃない、キーボード使ってるね。 だから、まあ、あるものから始まっている、そのイメージで作るといいと思います。
But people also started thinking a little bit more creatively, like what are some new instruments that we can make? So one of the next big electronic instruments was the theremin, which came around in the 1920s.
その後はこの、1920年代、その theremin, I think this is the one that Jimmy Page used.
Yeah, Beach Boys would use this too.
That-
Beach Boys,
that's right,
yeah,
that's right.
would use this too.
1920年の theremin, are you going to explain like how
Yeah.
that works? Okay, because
Yeah.
I'll tell them about the Jimmy
Cool, nice.
Page thing too.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So the way that the theremin works, this is somebody called Clara Rockmore. She was the very first theremin virtuoso, like the very first big player. And on the left-hand side, this kind of stick thing represents volume, so how loud something is. And this on the right is the pitch. So if your hand is closer to here, the pitch is higher. And if the hand is further away, the pitch is lower.
このまあエレクトロニックデバイスが、左手がそのボリュームが調整できるね。右手がやつ近くになるとピッチが高くなる。手引くとピッチが低くなる。まあ僕らの2人でちょっと盛り上がった話すると、アメリカの有名なバンドビーチボーイズを使ったことがある曲で、レッド・ゼッペリンのジミー・ペイジも使ったことがある。Whole Lot of Love の曲の中で。
Cool. So we also have other kinds of instruments that people were using. This here is a picture of John Cage, who's another composer more on the classical side. But John Cage would use a lot of normal electrical equipment, so not even meant for music, but trying to use that as a tool to make music.
この写真はね、1930年代なんですけど、ジョン・ペイジね。ジョン・ペイジが、まあ、もともとクラシックの人なんですけど、彼、なんていうの、音楽のエレクトロニクスじゃなくて、なんか日常のエレクトロニクスのものを使って、ちょっとインストゥルメントを作ったの、このジョン・ペイジね。
So coming back to that two kind of keyboard idea from just now, in the 1960s, that was really when a lot of synthesizers started becoming very popular. So here is a classic Moog synthesizer with one of the synthesizer pioneers, Wendy Carlos, playing the instrument. Wendy Carlos.
ウェンディ・カーロスの方、この写真なんですけど、まあ、これは1960年代です。ここで、まあ、シンセサイザーの、まあ、人気が始まったの、みんな多分ご存知と思うんですけど、このキーボードが、モーグのキーボードね。今も会社もある。
And there was also another really wonderful company, Roland, who we have some instruments from as well. In the 1980s, their creation of the drum machine, like this is the 909, but also the 808, 707, other drum machines, that was really an important part of music creation too.
まあ、日本の会社、ローランド、これは80年代作ったの。ドラム、マシンね。で、これは909けど、その前が808とか、まあ、その、ローランドの会社が、それは、このシークエンサーが、まあ、ドラムマシンを作ったことは。
So fast forward about 20 years, in the 2000s, there was a new movement that came around, and it originated right in New York City and San Francisco on both sides of the USA. And that's a movement that was called controllerism, and it was very new at the time. But what people were doing was that they would take controllers and they would build their own instruments. So all of these are actually separate things, but they would be taped together to build the same instrument.
2000年代はコントローラーイズムが、まあ、ちょっとブームになって、どういうことというと、いろんなコントローラーある。ね。で、それが合わせて、まあ、そこで音楽作るの時代が始まったの。
So this person over here is called, her name is Julie Cavello, and her artist name is DJ Shaky.
DJ Shaky, what was her?
Julie Cavello.
Julie Cavello.
Yeah.
まあ、この人がその方。
Yeah, and the reason why I wanted to show her picture is because she was the pioneer of the controllerism movement. She started off as a DJ, so you can kind of see she even has some equipment in the background, but she was a little bit bored of just DJing, and she wanted to do more, and that's how she started using software and controllers to perform her music live.
なんでこの写真見せてるの理由が、この人は、もともと DJ なの。なんか後ろを見るとその DJ っぽいの機材も置いてあるんですけど、本人が DJ だけがちょっとつまんないと思っていろんなコントローラー合わせてそこからなんかちょっと新しいことしようと思って。
So on that related note, this is kind of what we have jumped forward with at Berklee. So for a lot of my students, when I teach them, it's really from this controllerism mindset. Like, how do we take our electronic music and perform it in an exciting way? That's not just like you press a button and you're like, yeah, but you're actually performing more, playing instruments, doing live effects, things
だ
like
から、
that.
私が教えてるの、の授業、バークリーで教えてることが、どっちか言うと普通のコントローラーがボタンを押してなんか待つんじゃなくて、どうやってパフォーマンスとかライブの演奏するのが、テーマになります。
But yeah, just very briefly, I did want to talk just a little bit about DJing because it's also important in some of the classes that we teach at Berklee.
はい、でこのことを話すると、やっぱり DJ から離れることがあまりできないね。ちょっと関係あるの。だからちょっとだけDJ のことも説明します。
Has anyone here seen a DJ live before?
なんか DJ なんかどっかで見たことある？
Yeah, cool. Yeah, cool. That's great. A little bit of what's different, especially if you've seen a DJ live, is usually they have a little bit more of how to say this? They have a bit more of an overarching view. So what that means is sometimes or oftentimes they will play other people's music, like other people's finished tracks. But for us, we usually play original music and we have all of the different parts within the same song that can be taken apart.
だから DJ はね、みんなわかると思うんですけど、基本的に本当に仕上がってる曲使ってなんか新しいことちょっとしようみたいな感じで作ってるんですけど、逆このhow would I say it? What do you want to?
Like controllers?
Yeah,
Or- yeah.
クレアが教えてるのはコントローラーの使い方だから、いやどっちか言うと自分の制作するの、立場。他の人の曲使うより自分の曲作る。曲作ったら、いろんなパーツと合わすこともできるし、生で編集もできるし。
Yeah. And the way that DJing started as, a performance kind of thing was actually on the radio in the 1930s, right? So that's the very first instance of people playing records.
わかると思うけど、その DJ は始まったの、今はなんかパフォーマンスのイメージあるんけど、もともと1930年代、ラジオの、パフォーマンスレコード使ったね。
But eventually, even those people who knew how to DJ wanted to do more. So starting from the 1960s, for example, in Jamaica, they started doing something called toasting, which is now what we think of as rapping over DJs that play beats.
ほんで、普通のラジオの DJ がさっきの方と同じ、なんかちょっとつまんないと思って、新しいことをしようと思って、始まったのは1960年代、このトースティング。これは、ジャメイカの国、ジャメイカ知ってる？ほんまか？ジャメイカの国で、今、ラップと同じみたいな感じ。レコード流して、その上で、なんか、ラップするみたいな、トースティングですね。
Something else that people started to do so that they could make their performances more smooth and longer is called beat matching. And that started in the 70s. And what that would be is taking two records, making them the same tempo so that you can mix smoothly into one another.
なるほどね。ほんで、70年代、このビートマッチングの、始まったの。それがどういうことというと、曲長くなるため、レコード2つ合わせてけど、テンポ合わせないといけないよね。それはなんとなく DJ で見たことあると思うけど、同じテンポでビートがマッチングをするから、 なんていうの、長くできるの。
And something else that also started happening in the 1970s was this thing called turntablism, which is maybe a bit more obscure. But what that would entail is the DJs who are doing the beat matching and the record playing would also use the records to make sounds, like scratching.
で、1970年代、この turntablism が始まる。それはどういうことで、レコード使って、なんかちょっと特別な音を作るのを、ことが始まって、なんとなくなんかイメージができてると思う。スクラッチングとかね、わかると思います。
So even though live electronic performance isn't really DJing, it's still really important to us that we take some of the principles from DJ cultures, like being able to, have music layered over each other, like in toasting, or being able to create a smooth, long performance, like in beat matching, and also layering on different sounds, like in turntablism.
で、私たちが、クレアさんが言ってるのは、DJ じゃないんけど、でも、どっちか言うと、もうルーツはそこにあるから、さっきのこの3つのトースティング、ビートマッチングとターンテーブルは、どっちか言うと、その DNA がちょっと使わないと良くない。
So jumping forward a little bit to Berklee, I wanted to talk a little bit about what we actually do in the Electronic Digital Instrument program, which is a program at Berklee that lets students use this as their main instrument.
で、Electronic Digital Instrument EDI はさっきちょっと話あったんですけど、そのコースあるの、バークリーで。このコースあるね。で、それ内容が、このものを使って自分のメインインストゥルメントがこれになる。皆さんよりなんかギターじゃないね。自分のインストゥルメントが、このコントローラーになるね。
So instead of auditioning on a more traditional instrument like piano or vocals or bass for the college, you can come in with a setup that looks like this to the audition and do something like I did, and maybe you'll get in. Maybe you might get into the college.
オーディションするときがこのみたいなものを使ってオーディションするね。そのことね。ほんで頑張ったらうまくいったら入学おめでとうございますみたいな感じになります。はい。
So this is a program that started in 2019. So it's still quite new for us. It's only been around for about 5 years, but it was the first program at an undergraduate level in the US that would let students do this.
2009年から始まったんだから、もうまだ新しいコースね。どっちか言うと。だけど、初めてこのエレクトロニックデジタルインストゥルメントの学科がこのバークリーで始まったの。
The interesting thing about EDI or even just electronic performance is that systems can be very different from one person to another person, just because different artists will perform in different ways. And that's why at Berklee, we usually ask our students to have at least 3 things. So you can have many setups, but you need to at least have these 3 things here. And I'll explain a little bit about what these are.
で、人によるちょっと違うね、使いたいもの。だから、バークリーの、入学するときは、少なくても、Are those all 3 like Oh, no, you'll get to it. 3つが必要。で、この書いてあるの3つが必要になります。
So the first thing is a computing device. So that could be a laptop. For some students, it's even an iPad. Like if they have some kind of iPad or tablet that can run the software that we want them to use. So computer, that's the first one.
だから、この3つのとりあえず最初は、コンピューティングデバイス書いてあるんですけど、まあ、そのラップトップでもいいし、iPad 使ってる人もいる。
The second thing that they need is software, right? And for a lot of students, that is Ableton Live. So, for example, for me, I use Ableton Live also. And mainly in the industry, that's what most people who do electronic performance will use.
その後はソフトウェアが必要。で、まあ、いろんなソフトウェアあるんですけど、まあ、今はどっちか言うと、エイブルトン、このパフォーマンスする人たちよ。その作曲はちょっと違うと思うけど、そのパフォーマンス的なことしようと思ったら、まあ一番スタンダードが今、エイブルトンライブ使ってるね。
We have a very special, by we I mean like electronic musicians like me, have a very special place for Ableton Live in our hearts because Live, the name of the software is Live, and it was one of the first performance softwares that was ever created for electronic musicians. So we've been very close to it.
エレクトロニック楽器人はもう初めてそのパフォーマンス作ったのソフトウェア、この Ableton Live。名前が Live 入ってるね。それ分かると思う。だから Live のため作ってるものだから。はい。
Sometimes people will use Ableton Live for production, and that's when, you know, it might look more like this, like you have another view with tracks going left to right. But most of the time, if we're performing and we're using, you know, our EDI setups, we want to use a view of live that's specifically for performance. So this is called session view.
でもちろん、Ableton Live は、普通の制作の使い方もある。でも、さっき、can you show us the other the window?
Yeah.
This is, what is it?
Arrangement view?
これは Arrangement View なの。これは多分、Pro Tools 使ってる人とか、Logic 使ってる人、これ大体この見てると思うね。でも、Ableton Live の違いが、もう一つのビューがこのビュー、これがセッションビューいうの。ね、これはどっちかというと、そのライブのパフォーマンスのための、ウィンドウになりますね。
Yeah. And the last part that we need in our EDI systems is at least one controller. So for me, right now I have 3, but we usually ask that students have at least 1.
私今コントローラー3つ使ってるんですけど、この楽器入るためは少なくても1つが必要になります。
So I wanted to share a little bit about my personal setup in case anyone is thinking, maybe I want to actually try some of this out.
だからとりあえず私のどういうものを使っているのを説明します。皆さんもそれ今日、なんていうの、悩んでる人もいるかもわかんない。なんかこれから始まるのけど、どういうものを使っていいのかわかんないから、私の、使っているものを紹介します。
So I already talked about how my computer is, you know, a MacBook Pro. It's my laptop over here. I'm running Ableton Live, so that's 2 things. But for me, my controllers, I have 3 of them. One of them is this over here that's called Ableton Push. And this lets me control Ableton Live without having to touch the computer.
で、MacBook Pro を使ってるね。このソフトウェアがコンピューターに入ってるんですけど、一番盛り上がってるの、コントローラーがその Ableton Push ね。We have it in the schools too.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Here we go.
これ学校見たことあると思うんですけど、これはどういうものというと、Ableton Live はコントロールができる。コンピューター触る必要ないのことね。触れないじゃん、コンピューターなんかパフォーマンスするとき、細かいし。だからこのコントローラー使うと、Ableton Live は、使える。
And even though this is the main controller that I use, I also like using a few other things that can help with my performance. So I started off as a keyboardist, a pianist, and a flute player. But because I still like playing piano so much, that's why I often use some kind of keyboard. And this is called the MPK Mini.
Okay, so let me ask a question. You said you started playing keyboard and flute. 私は音楽始まったのキーボードとフルートだったんだから、なんちゅうのキーボードに対して愛情あるね。そこから始まったんだから。今もキーボードが弾きたいから、この一つのコントローラーがキーボードみたいなコントローラーある。What's the name of that one again?
MPK Mini.
MPK.
Yeah.
Where does it say that?
Mini.
Oh, Mini. MPK Mini のやつね。
Cool. Something else that I use a lot of is this controller over here, which is called the Korg Nano Control. So Korg makes this. And I like using this a lot for vocal effects because I sing a lot.
もう一つ使いたいのは Korg Nano Control。これは、日本の会社 Korg で作ってるんですけど、これは、ボーカルのエフェクターで使ってるね、ほとんどね。
So that's my MIDI controllers. And speaking of vocals, right? That's the other thing that I have in my EDI setup. I have a microphone, and it's going into my audio interface. So not everyone will use this because not everyone sings, but in my case, I have that.
私はもう、ボーカルやってるから、このマイクロフォンが、インターフェースとつないである。Is that a Universal Audio Interface?
It's a Apogee. Apogee. Yeah,
Apogee のインターフェース、使ってるね。このマイクロフォンさして。みんなは歌ってない人はそれ必要ないかも。
So, next I wanted to just briefly talk a little bit about what some techniques might be, like if you're doing an electronic performance. So maybe I'll show you some of the things that I did in my performance at the start.
だから、楽器と同じね、いろんなテクニックあるね。なんかそのテクニックは教えてあげたいと思う。さっきのパフォーマンスはちょっと、使って、なんかいろんな、その曲の中で使ったのテクニックは教えてあげます。
Cool. So let's start in the list with clip launching. I think what I may do is I'll talk a little bit about it and then I'll demo it with the system. But clip launching, to start off, is if you have some kind of audio clip, right? So maybe this, let's say the drums, it's already there, but you still need to press play to start it. And you also need to press stop to stop it.
クリップはね、オーディオファイル一つ短いやつね。だから、でも、Ableton Live のソフトウェアに入れてる自分の使いたいのクリップね、わかると思うんですけど、でも、変な話、カセットテープとか音源と同じ、スタートとストップのことしないといけないから。
So for example, I'm going to launch this clip. And stop it.
はい、その Ableton、プッシュ使って、そのスタートとストップ、その、クリップ、その音出してるね。
And then there's also live synth playing, this next one, live synthesizer playing. And all that means is to be able to play some kind of sound in real time, right? So for example, if I have a bass, I'm actually playing that sound.
だから、キーボードとちょっと違って、このプッシュのこの音、キーボードの使い方もあります。
There are multiple ways that you can do it in this particular system. Like one way that I could do it is from push, and you just saw me just now play like a scale, right? So you can play different kinds of scales. You can also play different kinds of like chords, right? So be able to do that. Or if you have a different controller, you can also play it on that too.
だから、このプッシュ使って、スケールも弾けることもできるし、コードも出すことできるしね。けど、そのキーボードのコントローラーもあるから、それもコントローラーになる。だから、選び方はそのやりたいことによる変わってくる。
Another performance technique that I do a lot of is something that's called finger drumming. And what that means is to not necessarily play a synthesizer, but maybe you're playing different kinds of samples. So it could be drums, right? It could also be different kinds of maybe, let's see, vocal samples. So that's finger drumming.
フィンガードラミングのテクニックある。これは、ドラムの音出してもいいし、全然音色を、ボーカルの音色使ってもいいけど、これは、finger drumming, you know.
Yeah. And another thing that I also do a lot, which you saw me do, was live effects processing. So for example, putting different effects on my vocals, right? So I can turn it on and off. Right?
これも、自分のボーカルのエフェクトをかけることもできる。
I can also do different things like repeat something. Or make that reverberated. Maybe another kind of phrase.
だからリピートしながらエフェクトもかけることもできる。
Okay, let's stop. Okay. And last but not least, live looping, which is to be able to do any of these other things live, but then have that repeat afterwards.
だからさっきの4つの中で繰り返すことはルーピングはできるからね。
So for example, what I like to do a lot of in my performances, which I also did just now at the beginning, is to use different loops in order to create new sections of the piece. So sometimes that involves looping drums or, vocals. And in this particular piece, it was the vocals. So I started off singing, but then I also live looped so that I would have this. Nobody knows. So I sang that just now, right? And then I also sang another layer. Nobody knows. So 2 loops. And then there was one more loop. Here we go. Nobody knows. So 3 layers of live looping. Yes, that is, yeah.
で今のキットのボーカルトラックは自分でさっきパフォーマンスの時は生で、サンプル取ったの、自分の声。で、取ったら、その後ハーモニー入れて、もう一つのハーモニー入れたら、ループを作ってるね。なんとなくわかるかな。その、ボーカルもループできるし、どういうものにも、生でレコーディングして、後でループで作って、曲を何回も出せることになります。
And I can use this in different parts of the performance later on because I did that in the introduction, but I'll show you what I did just now in the last chorus.
さっきのパフォーマンスこのことやったけど、最後のコーラスをもう一回そのループ使って、ちょっと面白いことをやりました。
Cool. So here was the last chorus. So just now what happened in the last chorus was that I was doing some other things, but I had the loops from earlier, and because I want the last chorus of the piece to be the most exciting and have the most layers, I chose to play that later on in like the final most exciting part of the song.
最後で曲は盛り上げるのがポイントじゃん。どういう曲にもそう。なんかさっきの作ったの3つのハーモニーパートが、最後で繰り返すように、ループを作りました。
Yeah. So that's a little bit of the performance techniques overall. And I think one thing that I think a lot about is how do I use each of these so that we're creating a performance that is not just a very like messy mix of all of these, but makes sense as a song.
まあ、ブサイクのことをやりたくないの。だから、ぐちゃぐちゃになると良くないから、まあ、課題はその辺にあるの分かる。なんかぐちゃぐちゃにならないけど、いろんなことしすぎると、なんか曲は複雑で分からんくなるね。でまあ、言ってるのが、まあ、どっちかというとなんかサビとかその A メロとかみたいな形するのがすごい今も大切。このエレクトロニックミュージックを作るとき。そのことを外すとちょっと分からんくなる。
So what I'd love to show next isn't a live performance, but it's a video of me doing a live performance. And there are some moments where I'll speak a little bit about what exactly is going on. So this is one of my Daltrick songs called Destiny.
この曲は Destiny のこれは自分の、活動ね、ドールトリックの自分の活動の映像を見て、なんかどうなってるのを一個ずつちょっと説明したいと思います。
So live looping.
これライブルーピングね。
More live looping.
もう一つのライブルーピング。
Now, right hand live synth playing.
で、これは生のキーボードの使い方。
And left hand live effect processing.
で、左手がそのエフェクターの、出してる。
Sticks and stones could break your bones, and words could hit you hard.
Clip launching.
Darkness
これはクリップローンチングしてる。
and pulls you close when daylight seems too far. Where's
it
だから
like
またキーボードの使い方でコード出して。
Deep within my mind, there's a voice that sings in my memory.
on the pads, the live samples, finger drumming.
で、これはフィンガードラミング。
Spread your wings and make our dream reality. Be what you're meant to be, meant to be. You are, you are, you are your destiny.
Finger drumming.
まだフィンガードラミングをやってる。
Yeah, so that's a little bit of what a combination of all of the techniques can look like.
さっきの、how many was it? 5 techniques?
Yes, the main 5. Yeah.
じゃあ5のさっきの説明者の5つの、テクニックはこの曲で、ちょっと紹介しました。
And sometimes it can be done in a very straightforward way where it's just one technique at a time. But a lot of electronic artists, especially when they start to get a little bit more skillful, like some of our students, will start to do multiple things at the same time. So for example, for me, I do like my right hand's doing one thing, my left hand's doing another thing, and then I'm also singing. But it's very exciting. It's kind of stressful, but it's also very fun.
だから、まあ、最初はね、一個ずつなんか使うみたいな感じよ。わかる？もう、でもやっぱり慣れると、本人も言ったけど、右手が一つのテクニック使ってる、左手が別のテクニックを使ってる、その同時に歌ってる。で、ちょっと、なんていうの、考えことが多いから、ちょっとストレスになるけど、でもまあ、楽しくできる。
Yeah. So, that's one last thing that I wanted to show because this involves my students. And something very special that we do at Berklee is we have electronic ensembles.
で、もう一つ見せたいのは、バークリー学生と一緒にやってるから、その、what did you say it was?
Like electronic ensembles.
Electronic ensemble もやってます。
Yeah. So instead of having a normal band, like maybe you have your drummer, guitarist, bassist, vocalist, right? In some of the ensembles that I teach, everybody is playing this, but everybody plays a different part.
で、まあ普通のアンサンブル、僕らよくやってるアンサンブルがベースとかドラムスとか、ギターとかあるよね。それじゃなくて、みんな自分のコントローラーでなんかアンサンブルしてるの、アンサンブルあります。
So just to show a few, I won't show the video, but just to show some of what it looks like, this is what the students do. Everybody has their own setup. And eventually, at the end of the semester, we do a show so that everybody is able to perform live like this together.
で、皆さん自分のコントローラーあるし、自分の、まあ、なんていうの、その3つのシステムあるから、そこでみんな集めて最後で発表会する。
So everybody has their own EDI system. We have some people singing, some people doing more like synth playing, and then other people are doing like vocals with effects. So that's also some of the ways that our students perform.
パフォーマンスするときはみんな EDI の、システムね、EDI Electronic Digital Instruments のシステム自分で使って、まあ、アンサンブルだから、なんていうの、歌ってる人もいるし、その自分のコントローラーでエフェクター出してる人もいるし、キーボードの役に人もいるし、いろんな形でアンサンブルになります。
So that's a little bit of an overview. Thank you so much for being here. That's an introduction to electronic digital instruments.
じゃあ、皆さん聞いてくれてありがとうございます。Electronic Digital Instrument の、説明会を終わりました。ありがとうございます。拍手してください。
Cool. And now maybe we'll take some questions.
じゃあ、質問コーナーになります。これは日本だからね。This is Japan, so nobody's,
Yeah,
they're
I
always
know,
like, well,
I
no.
know.
And then as soon as you try to get out the door, they're going to
Yes,
start to ask
I
you.
know. Anticipate
日
that.
本人が大体質問しないから、だから、そのことないように質問しなさい。
Yes, yeah.
あ いいよ。
Yes, Mitsuki.
みつき。いいよ。
自分はエイブルトンライブを使ってトラックヒップホップ
うん
のトラックを作ったりしてるんですけど、サンプル音サンプラーを使った個性的な音の作り方とかについてちょっと聞きたいなってずっと思ってたんですけど、
サンプラーがどういうことですか？
既存の音
もっと、はい、なんかその、
そのサンプリングをして、それを、
サンプリングが自分してるんじゃなくて、なんかサンプルどこでもダウンロードして
ダウンロードして、でそれを使って個性的な音を作りたいって思ってるんですけど、効果的なっていうかアクションであれば教えてほしい。
どういうタイプのサンプルが聞きたい？わかる？なんかそのドラムのサンプルとか何？それがちょっとなんか変わってくると思う、答えが。
そうですね。アコースティックな生音感のある、
その生音感は何？楽器は何ですか？
結構いろいろあるんですけど、
まあ一つの例にしましょう。いいよ、いいよ。He uses Ableton Live for mostly for like composing music or sequencing music, not so much a performance.
Right, yeah.
So he's asking about like if you are he uses samples. I don't know where he gets them, but he gets samples. So sample がどこからもらうんですか？
スプライス。
Oh, splice. Yes, yeah.
Okay, so there we have our answer. But he wants to know how can you manipulate it to make it more interesting. He's using a lot of like acoustic type sounds.
What kind of music do you make?
Hip hop.
Hip hop. Okay.
Lo-fi hip hop.
Lo-fi. Yes. Okay. So for lo-fi, that's a good question. For a lot of lo-fi samples, inside Ableton Live, there's actually a really great set of effects that are in. Let me show you what it is. But it's a lot of different kinds of effects that are types of filters. Right, so a lot of people, when they're doing track productions and things like that, they'll like using different kinds of audio effects that are not from Ableton Live, but when I produce, I actually use everything inside Ableton Live. Maybe, yeah.
そう、だから、Ableton Live の中でめちゃめちゃいいフィルターいっぱいあります。まあ、人によるね、その Ableton Live のフィルターとかエフェクター使わない人もいるけど、私は個人的に Ableton Live の、エフェクターがもう好きから。
Yeah, and one of the most powerful effects, I think, for me, for lo-fi, is this effect that's called auto filter.
Auto filter。私がこのここ書いてあるね。オートフィルターがもう大好きなの。
Yeah. Let's actually see if we can maybe put something in super briefly. I wanna tap tempo. Okay, cool. Let's do some lo-fi drums.
じゃあ、ローファイドラムのオートフィルター使って盛り上がりましょう。
So that's the drum pattern, but
ドラムパターン作りましたね。
but now if we start to use two filters, auto filter like this and like this. Okay, let me show you. Cool. You can start to filter out the frequency. So, right. Maybe slower for lo-fi. And the second filter we can change it into a high pass filter instead. So that's the lo-fi stuff. And the reason why it's, at least in Ableton Live, it's so good to use these particular filters, it's because they are modeled after real analog filters. So they have a really nice warm sound.
今オートフィル2つ使ってるの。1つは、the one on the right is high pass.
Yes, the one on the right is low pass, and then
low
high
pass.
pass on the left.
右側はローパスのフィルター、左がハイパスのフィルター。だから両方使って、このみたいな、雰囲気は作れるんですけど、まあ何がいい、なんでこれがいいというと、デジタルのものなんですけど、アナログの近いの音で真似してるから、作った、エブトンライブが作った時に。ね。だからもう温かいの音になります。
Hopefully that answers the question.
答えになりましたか？
はい、ありがとうございます。
Yes, yeah,
じゃあ明日ローパスとハイパスの自分でフィルターしてるものを持ってこい。明日。俺確認するからね。約束したね。はい、他の質問誰かありますか？おい。留年になりますよ。
Yeah, we could take questions from.
Oh, yeah, from the hello to the live stream people.
Let's put a low pass. Let's put the low pass
That's
filter.
low pass filter on that.
See what happens. こういうの人たちも質問ないの？In the meantime, can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
I use Ableton Live for like practicing guitar
Yeah.
because you can. Sometimes I'll come up with like cool loops that I can just
Right.
jam out to.
Yeah.
Do you? The problem that I have is that I'm sort of rhythm illiterate.
No.
So I'm just always looking for stuff that has like good like funk grooves. You know, do you have any like things that you like to use or
Yeah.
things that you think is a good idea for somebody like me?
For sure. I mean, to be very frank, especially for funky stuff, like nothing beats a real drummer and a real friend to play with. But I think
But I ain't got one of those.
I know,
sometimes,
right?
you know?
It's like we don't have friends. We're like alone in our rooms. It's only us.
With the cat.
Right? Yeah. Oh my God. What a real life story. But yeah, I think like for funk, for me personally, there are lots of really great loops even within the Ableton Live library. One of my favorite packs that I love just for different kinds of loops and different kinds of sounds is, let me find it over here. It's this one. It's called Chop and Swing. And it comes free with Ableton Live Suite, which is the highest, most featured version of Live. But there are lots of really different kinds of drums, lots of samples. Like, let's look for some drum loops, some full loops. And each of these will be a little bit different. But let's see. There are also different kinds of tempos, so it really depends on what exactly we're looking for. Let's see if I can show a little bit of this.
Let me tell them the question I have.
Yes,
first,
sure.
Or else it's just my
Yeah,
personal gratification here. だから僕は Ableton Live で何使ってるかギターの練習で使ってる。なぜかというと僕ギターソロを作りたいとかわかると思うね。だからでもいいグルーヴ感のものないと盛り上がらないわけ。なんかでも僕はまあちょっとだけリズム音痴言ってることわかる。ギターだから僕ドラムスあんまり興味ないの。ね。だけどファンキーのグルーヴが欲しいから。でも個人的にそれを打ち込むことができないから、できないというとちょっとドラマじゃないから苦手、あんまりなんか盛り上がるものが仕上がらないから、この中でなんかなんか僕が使いそうなやつあるとか、ほんで本人が なんかいいパックあるって、そのエイブルトンライブで入ってるの、そのパックの中でいろんな音色が入ってるとかね。だから、その中でこのチョープエンドスイングの中でなんかいろいろあるって。OK。
Yeah. And yeah, a lot of these can also be in different kinds of like styles, which is why I really love starting from this point. But just to show a bit of what are some of the loops, let me play a few of these through.
じゃあちょっと聞かせてあげたいと思います。
So let's see. So we can start from there. You could also start with or something faster, or like a groove, or let's see. So lots of different options as a starting point. Chop and swing is one of my personal favorites.
Sounds good. I'll try that.
Yeah.
Thank you. じゃあなんかよくわかりました。今日戻ったら、盛り上がる。じゃあ、紅葉から質問ないんですか？じゃあ、とりあえず美穂ちゃんだけ質問して。
I'm Miho. First, so thank you for your performance.
Yes, thank
So
you.
Amazing. So cool.
Thank you.
I want to ask you.
Yes.
Why did you change your main instruments from flute and keyboards to this like this?
She's asking because she's a keyboarder, so
Yeah.
now she's like, oh my god, should I change what I'm doing? You know. So.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that question. I mean, nowadays I still play a lot of piano and flute, so it's not like I've given it up totally. But for me, when I was learning piano, especially, I was doing a lot of classical. And then when I got to Berklee, I was doing a lot of jazz. So it was always very structured. And the very first time that I saw a live electronic performance was actually a group that I have a picture of here. Let me make it bigger. This is a group that's called Disclosure, but they're two brothers and they play together live. And I saw them perform in New York at Madison Square Garden, and it changed my life. So I started to be interested in these kinds of things. They also use Ableton Live to perform. They also use controllers. They also use laptops. But yeah, that for me, it was a lot about being musically free. Not that the piano isn't like free, but for me, I grew up in Singapore, and it was a place where if they teach you something, it's like always like that. So for me, when I got to Berklee, it was like, whoa, there's so many cool things here. Jazz was already opening a lot of things up for me, and electronic music was that next level. So that's why I wanted to do a lot of it. And I actually tried DJing at first. I still DJ now, outside of teaching. But like I said, sometimes I get a bit bored, so I do other stuff because of that too. Yeah, that's a great question. As well.
だからシンガポールで育ったんだから、まあその音楽のクラシックでもやるわけね。でもう軍人みたいなことだからもうなんかやらないといけないことがやらないとなんか起こるの。ね。ほんでそしたらニューヨーク行ったらさっきの兄弟の2人のコンサートマディソンスクエアガーデンマディソンスクエアガーデンしてるでかいのやつねなんか会場あるの 32nd Street
Yeah.
32ストリートにあるのどうでもいいよねそれほんでそれ見たらちょっと感動したの、ね、感動してなんかええなでも人で言うより別にキーボード好きよもう今キーボード普通やってるよだけどまあなんちゅうの今までなんかみんながやってることよりなんか新しいことがやりたくてもうそのきっかけだったのねそれをコンセプト見たら私もこれできそうみたいな
And just to finish off the answer, I think one thing that I think a lot about even now when I'm performing is the idea of like joy and like being happy, right? And for me, this is my happy place. I enjoy playing the piano and I enjoy playing the flute, but for me, whenever I do this, it's like, wow, I'm meant to do this kind of thing.
まあ、ね、気分ね 中東そのキーボードとフルートも好きけど、どっちか言うとこれやってる時が幸せで感じる自分のことね。だからみんな幸せになりなさいのことね。Koyo, is there a question from Koyo? だってみんな今
Yeah, I know. Everyone's freaking out. Oh, yes.
どうぞ。
Yes, we can hear, I think.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, Miss Claire.
Hello.
I'm guitar student of Koyo.
Cool.
And I come from China.
Nice.
I'm going to Berklee audition in this week.
Oh, in Hamamatsu.
In Hamamatsu.
We will see you there.
Really?
Yes, we will be there.
It will be nice.
Yes.
I wonder, how do you think of anomalous music? Anomaly.
Oh, yeah, I love Anomaly. He's so good. Yeah.
For a guitarist, if I want to create creative my own music like Anomaly, where should I start?
That is a fantastic question. Thank you so much for that question. And it's perfect because my answer is on this slide. This artist, let me zoom in. Okay. This artist, one of my favorite artists ever, his name is FKJ. I'm not sure if you know Anomaly, you might know of FKJ, but FKJ is a multi-instrumentalist, as you can see here. And he plays, guitar, bass, that's a Rhodes, a real Rhodes on the left, which is bizarre, and different kinds of MIDI controllers as well. But he really loves, I think as far as techniques go, his main thing is looping. So he loops for days and days and days. Like he takes one instrument, loops that, and then he puts it down, and then he takes another instrument, loops that. But if you look at his use of guitar, I think he's an excellent person to use as a starting point to analyze and listen to what exactly he's looping. Because he's not always looping chords, but it's like, here's some chords, and then maybe the next layer is, here's some rhythm stuff, like maybe he taps on the guitar. And then maybe he plays a solo over the guitar. So even though he's using one instrument, one acoustic instrument, it ends up being equivalent to like 5 acoustic instruments because he's looping them in different ways. So if that's something that you're interested in, I think checking out some of his work would be excellent as a starting point.
Can you tell me what his name is?
Yeah, FKJ, so the letters
FKG。じゃあ皆さん FKG を聞いてください。これ紅葉の学生さんが質問したのが私はギター弾いてるからなんかいいアドバイスあるんですかね。ほんでクレア先生がこのアーティストがちょっと聞いてくださいと言ってね。なぜかというと彼が、やってることはねギター普通の弾き方する時もあるんけど、例えばギターソロ弾くとかコード弾くそれだけじゃなくていろんなギター使ってなんか例えば5つのレイヤーを作る。なんかそれがちょっとギターの使い方がちょっと違う。この人はどっちかというとループ作るのがすごい得意。だからループどんどん作って重なって曲が多分どんどん大きくなって盛り上がる。だからぜひ皆さん検索してきてください。いい質問だってありがとうございます。
Thank you for the answer.
Yeah, thank you for that question.
See you in Hamamatsu.
Yeah, see you in Hamamatsu. Yeah.
By the way, Miss Claire,
Yes.
You can speak Chinese, right?
I can, yes.
Yeah. Koyo have a lot of Chinese students.
Oh, wonderful! Hi, 大家好，很高兴见到你们，谢谢。Thank you so much for coming. Yeah, thank you so much for tuning in.
And I'd like to introduce another student.
Yes, hi. Yes. Thank you so much. Hello.
I'm Mitsuru Aka. I'm Koyo student.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Would you tell me the most recommended synthesizer software?
Okay. The question is, what's the most recommended synthesizer software?
シンセサイザーのソフトウェアのお好み。
I try to make all music, but I don't know the synthesizer.
Yes, yeah. What software do you use now?
I try to make song in Cubase.
Yeah, Cubase is great. I think one software doesn't necessarily have a higher place over another. Like, there isn't really a best software for making music. I sometimes think that the best thing that we can do as producers is know whatever software we choose, but know it super well. So like if you make music in Cubase, know all of the synthesizers in Cubase because you already know Cubase. I tell this to a lot of my other students too. It's like, I know Ableton Live, but just because I use Ableton Live doesn't mean I make better music than someone who uses Pro Tools. I think it's really about us using the tools, the technology as tools, rather than trying to have the technology like use us. So like we need to know what we're doing. So I don't think there's really a best synthesizer software, but all of the synths inside Cubase are also worth exploring too. If it really does matter though, I mean, I think a big synth that of course everybody uses all the time is Serum, which is like a third-party VST. I'll just show everybody super briefly here. Yeah, Serum. Just to show everybody this software instrument. Let's take a look at it. Scroll down. Too many things. Okay, don't be like me. But let's see. I could also use the search bar anyway. Okay. So Serum. Everybody loves Serum. This is a really popular like VST, like a third-party plugin that a lot of people will use. But honestly, every single DAW, every single software, like Cubase, Ableton Live, Logic, anything else, Reaper, Bitwig, all have synthesizers. And I think it's more important that people use the concepts about sound design rather than fighting over what's the best synthesizer software. So I know it doesn't really answer your question. I'm sorry. I wish I could answer it and tell you that there's a best one, but there's no best one. It's really about what you're doing with your tools that you use.
だからなんか一つはないんですよ。なんか別にこれは使った方がいいのは全然ないの。ただもし自分のCubaseは使ってる人だったらCubaseの中でめちゃめちゃ詳しくなった方がいいと思う。それで自分の好きな音を見つけるし、作れるし、ね、もちろん音色を全部自分で変えることもできるし、だからでもそれ言ってもこの今出してるのソフトウェアはちょっと人気あるのね。
Serum?
Serum。ね。でこれは Ableton Live のやつじゃないね。これはサードパーティーというとその別の会社が作ってるものね。だからそれがみんなこれが好きけど、で一つはないね。自分の持っているものは武器にすると別にいいと思います。はい、以上。
Yes, thank you.
By the way, next month I try to get an audition at Berklee.
Oh, nice. Where will you be doing your audition?
Online.
Online. Oh, cool. I might also see you because I also do online auditions. But maybe there's a lot of faculty who do that, so it might be someone else. But all the best. Good luck for your audition.
頑張ってください。
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
I think time is up. So
Cool.
thank you so much.
No, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Thank you, Chris, for translating all of that.
My pleasure. My pleasure. じゃあ終わる時間になりました。残念。また会いましょう。You want to end it the Japanese way? Let's end it the Japanese way, okay?
Sure.
起立しげるも起立ありがとうございました。はい、拍手してください。Thank you, Claire. We had such a good time.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
はい、以上になりました。How about for you guys for the initiative parts? Do you want to do anything at this point? I mean, maybe we can.
If there's any last questions for us, yeah, we'd be happy to.
Should we do that online too or not?
Sure.
Okay. じゃあ
Hello, Mr. Brown again.
Hi. How are you?
Thanks for
Thanks. Yeah, absolutely. It's great to be here.
じゃあ、皆さんね、ここで終わるんですけど、もし入学について質問があれば、ちょっと残ってください。そうしましょう。It's like I'll just have the people that want to stay and ask questions. The other ones.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Alright.
We're here.
OK。じゃあ、とりあえず、以上をもちまして、お疲れ様でした。はい。はい。はい、じゃあ質問したい人は、後で声かけてください。よろしくお願いします。
Oh my god.